Bueno, habíamos
We had
terminado la
ended the
video
previous
anterior
video
con
with the
la
following
siguiente
question,
pregunta que
which
ahora
I'm
voy
going
a
to take up
retomar.
now. Should we use tokens for font sizes in our system? Remember that the spreadsheet we were initially working on was sent to me by Chechu, our designer, with a tab, Text Styles, where she listed the fonts she used for each font style. Well, I copied this table into a new tab, which I called Text Classes, where I mapped her typographic styles with the classes that I'll define in Genexus, following the BEM naming convention. I've already named the regions and written the font tokens and their weight. Remember that we did this when we created the 3 tokens for the fonts. Also, I've already associated the color tokens with them according to our system. Doing this will make it very easy to specify in our DSO the classes and their properties, which we still have to complete. We only have a few of these ones. Note that I've left in green color what comes from Figma and in pink color what will be valid for Genexus. But what about the font sizes? Going through the size column, I marked in black the sizes that are repeated, at least once, and copied in this other one all the values from largest to smallest without any repetition, but highlighting in bold the ones that are used more than once. There's no noticeable regularity, is there? Here we would have to make a similar analysis to the one we did for colors, but this time thinking about the font size system instead of the colors system. The h1 function, which is the main header text, is used both at a general level for the screen as a whole and also in specific components such as the card home, the banner, the card attraction. We could associate them with a token name for the size that's XL in the 4 cases, taking the default one as the first one. And since it's not the same for the components, specializing it there. So here, we would have the card XL, which is the same as for card attraction. And here we would have the banner XL. And for the h2 function, we could think of an L token, large, which is also specialized. And then we could associate an M token with the copyright, which is the next in size, and S with the paragraph one. And the XS one is assigned to the font size of the button. We could complete here with M all of those with this value 20, but be careful. These tokens will vary by screen size, so we should see them at work for the other 2 sizes before deciding. Chechu completed the modeling of the project by also adding the application design for tablet and phone sizes. She did it in another file, this one. Here we see all the pages modeled for tablet, and here they're all modeled for phone. What we would have to do then, if Chechu hadn't already indicated it in the spreadsheet, is to extract the font size values for each screen size. So for example, the desktop size, the font size of the H1 typographic style was 100. Meanwhile, for tablet size, it's 60 pixels, and for phone, it's 40 pixels. To work in a more orderly way, we could add a column for each breakpoint and place the equivalencies there. As I did with H1, I look for the sizes of H2 for paragraph, for button, the values will be the same. Next, note that while for desktop we have banner and footer, for tablet and for phone we don't. So there will be no values for the style of the copyright text, nor for the banner. Well, these other values are easily completed, but what about the H2 of the card home? As we can see, it doesn't exist. That typographic style is not used for tablet nor for phone. And what about the H1 of the card attraction that for desktop, we had seen that it matched with the H1 of the card home, which is why we initially assigned the same token, card XL. Well, obviously I was wrong, because let's see that for desktop size. Well, for the card in home, it's 42. For the card in attractions, it's 36. And in attraction, also 36. So I'd need one more XL token, but this time from card attractions or attraction component is the same. However, it's not enough either. For desktop size, the attraction card only varies in card size. And we have two sizes, not in terms of internal texts, and also H1 matches exactly that of attraction. Let's see what happens in tablet. Well, let's not panic. Here's the thing. We see that attractions cards also have different text sizes. That is, we have two sizes for H1. This one, 36, and this one, which is 20. And if we look at phone, they also vary. This one is 20, and this one is 12. So we have a big version for the larger titles with these values. 36 for desktop, 36 for tablet, and 20 for phone. And a small version for the smaller ones with these values, the same for desktop, but 20 for tablet and 12 for phone. But I'll also need another version, this time for the cards in the attraction panel, that if for desktop size was the same, for tablet size and phone, it's not. So I name it card attraction because it'll be from the attraction panel. I assign it the values identified before and rename these two to indicate that they're from the attractions panel. We would have to do the same for location and rating. Looking at the desktop version, we can think that the rating, which is exactly the same size in the attractions and attraction cards, is of size M, which here would be 38 pixels. As for location, on the other hand, as it's smaller, we could say that it's an S, which here would be 14 pixels. So I call this one Card Attractions S, 14 for desktop. And this other one, which is not 41, at least not in this new file from Chechu, maybe in some of the versions that she sent me before, the ones that didn't have all the screen sizes, she had used this other 41 size and then she adjusted them. Probably something like that happened. So this other one, which here is 38, I'll call it Card Attractions M. Well, here is the same as for H1. Let's take a look at the tablet rating. There are three variations for large cards, for small cards, and for attraction cards. It'll be worth 38, 16, and 21 respectively. Then we define three tokens for the rating, which for tablet will take the values 38, 16, and 21, and which I call M. But for the component card attractions big, the big card. This instead will be M, but for the smaller attractions card, and that's why it's small. And finally, this one will be M2, but for card attraction. And if we now look up their values for phone, we see that there are only ratings for the big and small attractions cards. There's no rating for this one, and their values are 16 and 12. Now we need to see the location values, which apply only to the attractions cards. For desktop, it's 14 pixels, while for tablet, the big card is also 14 pixels, and the small card is 12 pixels. And for phone, the big card is 12, and the small card is 10. So I add the S tokens for card attractions big and small. While doing some checking, I found that Chechu also changed this value to 16. If I stop to think about what I've been doing, because I got a little lost in all these details, which are necessary, but also a little disorienting. What I was doing was to use as a size abstraction the one that's generally used for sizes. That is, choose an S, M, L, small, medium, large, scale, to which you can add XS, XL, or more if needed. I built this scale from the desktop size, which was the one I used as a reference, that is, as default. According to the sizes of the text used there, I tokenized them with that scale. But to do it, I also considered the component's own scales. Here I extracted the scale of tokens that we have so far to view all this clearly. After these first ones, I thought about the components, and I hope it's obvious at this point, but in this context, I've been talking all the time about components, and I never referred to the Genexus component object, and not even to the Figma component. I'm referring to abstract parts of the layouts that have a function in themselves, that encapsulate the functionality. For example, being a banner or being a card of the home or attractions. Well, components reset the scale, so to speak, establish a new scale, which is internal to the component, and in some cases is related to the default. For example, I call these XL because they'll correspond to H1 text as that of the default scale. And then setting this as XL, it's easy to choose what names to give to the other tokens of the component. But, for example, what names do we give to the contact form texts, which we don't have yet? They correspond to these two typographies. And we see that for desktop, one is 20 and the other is 16. We only have two values, a larger one and a smaller one. The question is, do we call them XL and L, or L and M, or M and S, or S and XS? I asked Chechu because I couldn't make up my mind, and she told me that in general we start with S. So I decided to go with M and S. And what am I missing? The size of the text corresponding to the labels of the menu options. Let's analyze this in Figma. While for desktop size, we'll have the menu overlaid on the hero image with all the options visible, for tablet and phone, on the other hand, we'll have the typical hamburger menu. In the Components section, this time from Figma, Chechu designed how the menu should look when it expands. And the size for tablet will be this. And for phone, this other one. Well, the question here is, do we create a componentized token, for example, calling it menu, as we did with the colors? Or do we consider the size of the menu labels as part of the general default system of the whole page, and in that case, it has to be placed consistently within this scale? Because I couldn't make up my mind, I asked Chechu, who preferred the second option, especially if we consider that in desktop size, these elements are at the same level as the hero title and the rest of the page. And that, in relation to the others then, it should be an M. But then I asked her about something that bothered me, which is that this copyright also has an M value. That is to say, conceptually, it has the same size as the label of each menu option. Chechu's answer was, I was right. Conceptually, it didn't make sense. But when she placed the elements visually in the frame, when she was putting the design together, it looked perfect. And this is something that happens a lot in design. Not everything is perfectly systematized. I thought it was nice to show you this case because it's going to happen all the time in real life. Not everything is seamless. Even if they have the same value of 20 pixels for the desktop size, remember that the copyright will only appear for that screen size because neither tablet nor phone will have a footer. Conceptually, the copyright should be a separate token, so that it's independent of the size of the menu labels. But, as Chechu told me, it's not necessary to tokenize all texts. It is necessary for the most important ones, but not for the others. In this case, we could be inclined not to assign a token as value to the font size property of this class. This is because if at a given moment we have to change the font size of the copyright, we'll only have to look for the class of that name to change it, and nothing else. Therefore, the token is not so essential in this case. Alright, if I copied things correctly, this is how the font size tokens would look like. And I'll add this table in a new tab in the spreadsheet so I have everything together. Well, I don't know about you, but I'm exhausted. And I guess I must have lost several of you along the way. This is a sign that all this analysis, this detailed work, is cumbersome to do. And actually, I may have made a mistake. So you may find some errors in the values I copied and so on. But it's a job that, although tedious, is very important because the more we can systematize in that first stage, in the earliest stage, the easier it'll be to update our system later on. In fact, yesterday I was talking with Chechu, and I'm going to close this video with that and take all this to Genexus in the next video, because now I'm really exhausted. And I can imagine that you are too. Well, in the conversation I had yesterday with Chechu, talking just about this topic, about how convenient it is to do this tokenization for a system as small as ours, or if it's not more convenient to do this type of tokenization of font sizes for design systems that will be used by several digital products, and not only one by one, as in our case. We are doing a custom application, a customized, customer-facing application. So, for example, I was thinking about the work that's being done at the level of what used to be Unanimo, which is going to become the design system. I don't remember if it was Gemini or Mercury, because the name was changed. I think it's Mercury, for the next version of Genexus, for the web version of Genexus. Well, and in that case, it's being thought of as a design system that's going to be used by any Genexus application, and not only Genexus. So in this case,
caso tiene pleno sentido porque es un sistema de diseño justamente que va a tener que adaptarse después a realidades que a priori no conocemos. Sin embargo, Chechu me decía con acierto que en realidad no, que para todo sistema es importante hacer esto porque en realidad después si hay que modificar, porque las aplicaciones no quedan estáticas en el tiempo, y después si hay que hacerle un lavado de cara o hacer una reingeniería, tener todo esto tokenizado ahorra trabajo de una manera impresionante. Y entonces, bueno, va de la mano con la consistencia, con que no pierda calidad, con la eficiencia también en los cambios. Imaginen que si ahora queremos hacer teniendo estos tokens que acabamos de definir, si queremos hacer cambios en los tamaños de los textos de los headers, de, no sé, las cards, lo que sea, es facilísimo, simplemente ir a los lugares donde están definidos los tokens, se cambian los valores y ya está, no hay que buscar más nada. Bueno, un contraejemplo de esto es lo que hicimos recién con el copyright, ¿no? Porque para el copyright sí va a tener que ir a buscar dónde está la clase que define el copyright para ir ahí a cambiarle el valor. Pero justamente, ¿por qué lo hicimos así? Porque es un elemento que ni siquiera se repite. Entonces es muy sencillo y el costo-beneficio de tenerlo tokenizado, porque bueno, obviamente incrementar la cantidad de tokens hace que se complejice la lectura del sistema, ¿sí? Pero bueno, si estamos apostando a que cada vez más nos vamos a transformar en editores de los trabajos, de los proyectos, más que en creadores, bueno, esta etapa, entenderla, dominarla, es fundamental. Bueno, y dicho todo esto, entonces sí, ahora los dejo descansar y seguimos en el próximo video.